Despite the recent struggles on the recruiting trail, there are plenty of reasons to be optimistic about Texas football's class of 2026. I'll tell you why you shouldn't be pressing the panic button on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember to leave a comment. That's one of the fastest ways to help us grow here on Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We'll talk about some flip candidates in segment 2. We'll also get to the latest with Texas baseball and the transfer portal before we get out of here. But to open up today's show, we are talking Texas football recruiting, and there is no way around it. Last week was rough for Texas's efforts in the class of 2026. There were 7 Longhorn targets that committed in the 5-day stretch from last Wednesday through last Sunday, and all 7 of them committed elsewhere. Offensive tackle Zayden Krempin went to A&M. Xavier Crowell, the running back, to Alabama. Malachi Lee, the offensive tackle, went to Michigan. Safety Chase Calicut picked Georgia. Defensive lineman Damari Simeon chose Ohio State. Defensive lineman James Johnson chose Georgia. And the linebacker Xavier Griffin picked Alabama. Texas was a finalist for all 7 of them, but unfortunately, none of them committed to the Longhorns. And, well, that sucked. And I've sensed some panic around Longhorn Nation following all of these recent recruiting misses. Texas currently has the 12th ranked class in the country for 2026. After being number 1 last year, folks aren't super excited about number 12. But hey, Steve Sarkisian's had 3 straight top 5 classes. So number 12 feels like a bit of a step back. And again, I'm sensing a bit of a freak out happening with some Texas fans. Emphasis on some. I'm not accusing all of you of anything here. I promise. I know some of you are perfectly calm and you are nowhere close to the ledge right now. But for some of you, you are. And if you'll allow me, I would like to talk you off of the ledge here. And hey, even if you're not on the ledge, I assume you like good news, so I hope you stick around for this too. Texas is going to get at least 3 commitments this week. I feel very good about that. And I also feel very good guaranteeing that Texas will be in the top 10 in terms of class rankings by the time you get to the rooftop where you're watching your fireworks on Friday night. There are 8 Texas targets committing between tomorrow and Friday, so there's going to be a lot of fireworks, yes, pun intended, over these next few days. But again, I feel extremely confident in saying at least 3 of them will pick Texas. The Horns aren't getting all 8, but unlike last week, they're not going to get skunked this week. A big change in this week's schedule involves the 5-star offensive tackle Felix Ojo, who is the top-ranked player in the state, a guy who plays his high school football at Lake Ridge in Mansfield. If you have followed this channel, if you follow Texas recruiting even a little bit, you know who Felix Ojo is. Ojo announced yesterday that he is going to be committing this Friday on the 4th. Ojo has taken a total of 8 official visits during the entirety of his recruitment. I should say he's been to 8 different places during his recruitment, but my sources tell me that Texas has been in the lead the whole time and that hasn't changed. Sark reportedly told Ojo that he was Texas's number 1 target on their board in this class, and they've treated him like a franchise player throughout this recruitment, not just this year, but in the past couple of years as well. And again, when you're talking about the top-ranked player in a state that produces as much or more talent than any state in the country, you understand why Texas has made Felix Ojo a major priority. He's 6'6", 275 pounds. If Ojo were to land in Austin, he would be the highest-rated offensive line prospect that the Longhorns have landed in the modern recruiting era. He'd also be the 8th highest rated prospect overall that Texas has landed. But again, he'd be the number 1 ranked offensive line prospect that Texas has got, even ahead of Kelvin Banks, who was a part of that class of 2022, a 5-star a few years ago. We also know how good he was at Texas and ended up as a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Ojo, at least as a recruit, ranked higher than that. So he would be a huge get, and I expect him to be a part of this class. So that would obviously be massive news for Texas to keep the top-ranked player at home at a serious position of need. Texas has done extremely well recruiting on the offensive line in the Kyle Flood era, and this would be another big-time piece to add to the equation. But again, Felix Ojo is not the only guy that I feel good about committing to Texas this week. Matter of fact, he's not even the only offensive lineman that I feel good about committing this week. Speaking of Kyle Flood, John Turntine III, another guy that Texas has been in good position with for a while. I'd say since the beginning of Turntine's sophomore year. Remember, he's going into his senior year of high school as a part of the class of 2026. So going back a couple of years, Texas has been in the driver's seat. Kyle Flood has been recruiting Turntine harder and maybe even longer than any offensive line coach in the country. I really like where the Longhorns stand as of today. Don't want to assume anything in recruiting, but again, people I've talked to believe that when Turntine announces his decision a little bit later this week, it is going to be Texas. He's 6'3", 6'4", about 285 pounds. Some view him as a tackle. Some view him as a guard. Either way, he is viewed as a really, really good offensive line prospect, and he would be another big in-state keep for Texas. He plays his high school ball at North Crowley up in the Metroplex. He was a part of North Crowley's state championship team in 2024. This is a guy that you want. 24/7 Sports has him ranked as the 3rd best interior offensive lineman in the class. Again, some think he's a guard, some think he's a tackle, but he's a top 40 player nationally in this class. So everybody wants him, and reason to believe that Texas is a part of that category, and he would be a big-time addition for Texas. This is a guy you want. Michigan, Texas A&M, and Stanford are all pushing, so nothing is official just yet. But again, I really like where Texas stands as of right now. Talk about maybe getting 2 tackles, 2 stud tackles in this class, or at least 2 great offensive linemen in the span of just a couple of days. That would really help maybe change the narrative surrounding Texas recruiting right now, and I think really help get some people further away from the ledge. One more name for the sake of this segment. Again, I mentioned, I believe, at least 3 players will be committing to the Longhorns over these next few days. Linebacker / edge rusher Kosi Opala, a 4-star from the Houston area. Talked about him a little bit during yesterday's show. He is going to commit on Thursday. I think Texas wins this one too. Baylor's in the mix, Penn State in the mix, Miami a part of this thing as well. But another guy who has been a Texas lean since very early in the process. Opala is 6'2", about 227 pounds. He's been on campus in Austin more than anywhere else, and he saved his final official visit for the Longhorns back the weekend of June 20th through the 22nd. So again, he's been here more than he's been anywhere else. Saved Texas for that final OV. That matters for a lot of these recruitments, and Texas has been on Opala for a long time. Matter of fact, when Johnny Nansen was hired a couple of years ago, Opala was the first in-state linebacker that Nansen went to see. So, again, high priority for Texas. Johnny Nansen coming in to the job in Austin was like, no, that's a guy we really want. That's a guy I need to prioritize. And that effort maybe will pay off for Texas on Thursday. So the Longhorns, again, in great standing there. So that's 3 names right there. And again, 8 Texas targets are committing tomorrow through Friday. So there could be another 1 to 2 of those 8 who end up choosing Texas on their table full of hats. But I am telling you right now, Texas is going to get commits, plural, this week. And I promise y'all, the sky is not falling. Everything will be fine. And this week will be proof of that. You're not going to win them all, especially in the NIL era where recruiting can change on a dime. I thought Texas was in a great position for 4-star defensive lineman Kendall Gerville. I thought we were going to be talking about him during this segment. He's from the state of Florida. Apparently, Florida just gave him a huge NIL offer at the start of this week. And all of a sudden, all my sources who felt great about Gerville being a part of Texas's class now are like, yeah, I don't know if Texas has enough to offer, or at least I don't know if they want to offer enough to get Gerville out of Florida. So it happens in the NIL era. This stuff can change on the dime. But the good news is Texas is well equipped with NIL, and they already do have a really good class coming together, and it's about to get even better. So right now, Texas sits at 15 commitments here on Tuesday. That number will be going up very, very soon. Again, multiple players will be choosing Texas this week. I can guarantee you that. All right, I've got more reasons for optimism today. Hey, it's a short week. Independence Day coming up on Friday. I don't even know if any of y'all are working this week at all. Feels like a lot of people are at least mentally checked out. So we're in a good mood, about to celebrate our country's independence. A few more reasons for optimism. Sometimes the best predictor of the future is looking back at the past. We're going to talk about some key flips in the Steve Sarkisian era. Give you a little bit more confidence that, once again, everything is going to be all right. We will do that next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're a baseball fan, a soccer fan, a golf fan, maybe you're a fan of all three, FanDuel is the best way to make every game and every moment more exciting. You're already following the action. You need some sports to watch this time of the year, right? You can make things a little bit more thrilling with our friends at FanDuel. You can get in on all of the action while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach, at the lake, at the pool, whatever. You can be making a lot of money. The FanDuel app is super easy to use. You can track all of your matchups, all of your bets, all of your picks, and you can also bet in-game. So your team's down by 1 run going into the bottom of the ninth. Think you're about to get a walk-off? Boom, FanDuel right there on the app, on the website, super easy to use, and they pay out incredibly fast. If you are a new customer, head over to FanDuel.com. You place a $5 bet, and it hits, you are going to get $150 in bonus bets just like that. Again, FanDuel.com, place a $5 bet. If that bet wins, you are going to get $150 in bonus bets just like that. Open the FanDuel app or head over to FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. So kind of a continuation of segment one. Texas has hit a bit of a wall in recruiting to wrap up the month of June. Is it time to panic? No. Is it frustrating? Yeah, I'm frustrated. I think we're all a little frustrated and annoyed with the way some of these recruitments have gone in recent days. And look, Texas has extended its net wider than it ever has before in terms of national recruiting. But the truth is, winning out of state is tough. Recruiting isn't easy. And even though Texas has put 23 players in the NFL draft the last 2 years, more than anybody in the country, not everybody is chomping at the bit to get to Texas, especially out of state. We're talking about, 17, 18-year-olds packing up, moving to a place that they've never been to before. Like, that's a large decision. Not every recruit is willing to make that, and that is the nature of the beast. We've hit July. Texas has still yet to hear a number of decisions go their direction. And I think, though, it's worth remembering that this staff has done a tremendous job of flipping players. Like, I'm going to run down a list of flips in the Steve Sarkisian era to serve as a friendly reminder that nothing is over until pen meets paper. Go all the way back to Steve Sarkisian's first cycle. We've got quantity and quality of players here that we're talking about. All the way back to Sark's first cycle, the class of 2022, Texas flipped 4 recruits that at one point in the cycle had committed elsewhere. Kelvin Banks, he was one of them. Committed to Oregon on July 4th, ended up flipping to Texas in December, right before National Signing Day. Cam Williams was another guy who also committed to Oregon. He flipped to Texas in December, the day after Kelvin Banks did. Could you imagine where Texas would be without Banks and Williams? The impact both of those guys had on this Texas program, especially Kelvin Banks being a 3-year starter at left tackle. Like, those guys were hugely important. And man, after 5-7 in Sark's first year, Texas didn't have a whole lot to pitch back then. They obviously do now with back-to-back trips to the college football playoff semifinal. Getting those 2 dudes was huge. 4-star corner Terrence Brooks, 3-star defensive back Xavion Bryce also flipped to Texas that year. Again, after a very disappointing 5-7 campaign That included the longest losing streak for Texas football in more than 50 years. I guess we have to thank Mario Cristobal for leaving Oregon and taking the job at Miami. That's a huge part of why Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams flipped. But hey, that stuff happens. Head coaches leave, position coaches leave, and that opens the door for flips. On to the class of 2023. How about these names? Anthony Hill, Jelani McDonald, Colton Vasek, DeAndre Moore, Warren Roberson. All of those guys were once committed to other schools. Now they're all at Texas, and they're all still here, and they've all made an impact on this program. I mean, Anthony Hill, one of the best players in the sport right now, a likely first-round pick in next year's draft, a guy who was a day-one starter at Texas who has just seemingly gotten better by the day. Remember, Ant Hill was once committed to Texas A&M. Colton Vasek was once committed to Oklahoma. Both of those guys committed to those other schools in the summer and then flipped to Texas in December right before the early signing day. DeAndre Moore committed to Louisville, another December flip to Texas right before signing day. Warren Roberson and Jelani McDonald actually didn't flip until the turn of the year. They waited till National Signing Day 2 before they flipped from where they were committed and ended up choosing and signing with Texas. Anthony Hill's been awesome. I mean, DeAndre Moore, at the time, it didn't feel like that big of a deal because Texas had Jonte Cook in that class of 2023. Moore wasn't the highest graded receiver that Texas brought in that year. Well, Moore might be wide receiver 1 on this Longhorn squad in 2025. Colton Vasek's a big key. Roberson's been great on special teams, may take an even bigger role in on the defense this year. Jelani McDonald's probably a starter for your secondary. So, yeah, those guys, again, at one point we were all bummed and disappointed. Oh, we're not going to get them. Steve Sarkisian and company, they were able to make it happen. Then you go on to the class of 2024. 3 flips that year. 5-star defensive back Xavier Filsaime, 4-star linebacker Tyanthony Smith, 4-star defensive back Wardell Mack. All those guys ended up choosing Texas. Filsaime and Mack were both Florida commits. Smith was A&M. As I lose my screen here. Got to turn this screen back on for those of you tuned in. There you go. Sorry about that. All of those guys flipped from SEC schools. Again, Filsaime and Mack were Florida commits. What happened? Why did they leave Florida? Well, Florida parted ways with their secondary coach, Corey Raymond, right after that season came to an end in 2023. That opened the door for Texas to barge in, and Texas kicked down the door and got both of those flips. And then Tyanthony Smith, an A&M commit. Anytime you could steal from your little brother, that's good news. It's a good thing. That goes without saying. All 3 of those guys are expected to contribute to this year's team, and not only here in 2025, but in 2026, maybe 2027 as well. And then this most recent cycle, about 5 flips, easy for me to say, for Texas in the class of 2025. Cade Phillips, Dalen McCutcheon, Myron Charles, Josiah Sharma, Grayson Littleton, all 4- and 5-star players. This 2025 class looks a hell of a lot different without those guys. We're definitely not talking about the number 1 class in the country if you don't get those flips. And not only did those guys flip, I mean, they flipped from LSU, from Oregon, Florida State, Clemson, some big name schools from around the country. We appreciate Florida State being terrible because Dalen McCutcheon and Myron Charles were once FSU commits. And if the Seminoles don't go 2-10 this past season, who knows if Texas ends up with either or both of those guys. But again, this class, or this most recent class, looks so different if you don't get those flips. At one point, we were all like, damn, these are losses for Texas. And then, again, nothing is official until pen hits paper. So the point of all of this is to remind you that Texas has been great at flipping. Flip miss is a real thing around these parts. And I talked about it earlier. Like, there's a story within the story for all of those flips. Coaching changes happen. Head coaches get fired. Head coaches leave for other jobs. Position coaching changes happen. Coaches get fired. They get promoted to coordinators. They go somewhere else. Teams that were supposed to be good stink. Florida State started the year in the top 10 last year. Almost made the playoff 2 years ago. They won 2 games last year. Like, there are teams like that and examples of that, maybe not as extreme as Florida State, but there's going to be a team that starts the year in the top 10 that's probably recruiting really well right now that ends up going 5-7, 6-6, and has a couple of recruits jump ship. That's how it goes. Now in the era of NIL offers may fall through. Whatever the reason, guys flip all the time, and it will happen this year. And I guarantee you, another guarantee today, I feel like Charles Barkley out here, guarantee you that Texas will benefit from at least a couple of flips in this 2026 cycle. It's been at least 3 every year since Sark arrived, so that feels like a safe floor to talk about. July's going to have some fireworks, but man, I can't wait to see what happens in November and December as this staff puts a bow on this recruiting class. Few names to keep in mind. Some early flip candidates based on recent commitments elsewhere. Malachi Lee, the offensive lineman who picked Michigan last week. Xavier Griffin, linebacker who chose Bama. James Johnson, the lineman who chose Georgia. Chase Calicut, the safety from Houston who picked Georgia. And then KJ Edwards, maybe the biggest one, the running back from Carthage who picked Texas A&M, kind of out of the blue last week. So Texas isn't going to give up. They are going to recruit through the whistle. And the success that this staff has had should give you reasons for optimism that everything's going to be all right. And Texas is still working to put together one of the best classes in America. Take your thoughts. Comment below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Am I being overly optimistic? Are you panicking? Where are you right now? Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10 with your confidence level of Texas landing another top 5 class. All right. A little Texas baseball for you before we wrap things up. Some transfer portal news for Jim Schlossnagle's team. Some very lofty predictions for the Longhorns in 2026. We'll get to them next right here on Locked On Longhorns. All right, back here on Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. 2 more transfer portal departures to talk about for Texas baseball. The first one hurts. At least it hurts me. I don't know if it hurts anybody else. Outfielder Easton Winfield, who transferred to Texas from Louisiana Monroe last offseason, has hit the portal. This doesn't hurt because Winfield did a ton for Texas this past year. It hurts because I thought he was going to do a ton for Texas this year and moving forward. He was one of the top-ranked players in the portal, guy who put up really good numbers as a freshman at ULM back in 2024. He was expected to be a starting outfielder for Texas in 2025, and he played some. It's not like he was so bad he couldn't play at all. Played in 24 games, started 19 of them. Most of those came early on in the year because he just never really figured it out at Texas. Hit just .250, a lot of strikeouts, 1 home run, 8 RBIs. And you look at the numbers he put up at ULM, 10 homers, 40 RBIs, a batting average over .330. He looked like just an up-and-coming star, and there were a lot of big schools that wanted to get Easton Winfield. Texas got him. Thought it was a huge win for Schloss and company. Turned out not really. Winfield also had a devil of a time out in left field, too. How about an .833 fielding percentage? Just a lot of mistakes at the plate, a lot of mistakes in the field, and, turned out the jump from the Fun Belt, that's where ULM is, to the SEC was a little bit too big for Easton Winfield. That happens. He's not the only guy. I wish him the best. I know it sounds like I'm probably dunking on the kid right now. I hope he finds success wherever he ends up. I was just hoping that success would be here in Austin. And I was thinking maybe Winfield was going to stick around for at least another year. Like Max Ballou, likely gone to the MLB. Will Gasparino is transferred. Tommy Farmer is transferred. Maybe there was an opportunity for Easton Winfield to get a little bit more playing time next season. Maybe he wanted to stick it out and compete. But alas, that is not the case. So we'll see where Winfield ends up. But he has hit the portal. The other Texas transfer, I mentioned there were 2. Left-handed pitcher Bryce Navarre, who is leaving the Longhorns after just 1 season with the program, made 6 appearances this past year as a freshman, 1-0 record with an 8.12 ERA. Didn't see a ton from Bryce Navarre, especially in conference play and into the postseason. Wasn't sure what type of role he was going to have moving forward. He will not have any role at Texas moving forward. So as of current counts, there are 15 players departing Texas baseball this offseason, but on the contrary, Texas has added 10 through the portal. And a reminder, roster sizes are shrinking from 40 to 34 this coming year. So if you're wondering why they've had more guys leave than guys come in, well, that's why. They can't bring in as many guys as guys who are leaving. Of course, Texas will lose players to the MLB draft as well. Texas is also bringing in players from the high school ranks, so they can't make those numbers equal for a number of different reasons. But yeah, roster size is 34 instead of 40 as a part of revenue sharing and all of the other big changes that have come to the NCAA due to the House settlement passing. All right, now to the predictions part of this. The folks at D1 Baseball released some way too early Omaha 8 projections for next year. And they asked 10 writers to give their predictions on which 8 teams would make the 2026 College World Series. 8 of the 10 writers from D1Baseball.com picked Texas. It's tied for the second most of any school. There were also 8 who picked LSU, the defending champs, to make it to Omaha. So, hey, you want to be in contention with LSU. That's the standard right now. They won 2 of the last 3 national championships, second all time with 8 titles. And that's who you want to be associated with. And Texas did beat LSU 2 out of 3 times this year. Obviously, the postseason success not as good for the Longhorns. But again, that's good company to be in. By the way, UCLA was picked by all 10 writers. That's interesting. We almost saw Texas UCLA in the Super Regional. Fortunately, the Longhorns didn't hold up their end of the bargain. UCLA did make it to the College World Series this year. I'd be lying if I told you I knew everybody they had coming back, but the fact that more people think they are going back to Omaha than LSU or Texas or anybody else in America tells you that something is brewing out there on the left coast. Also saw SEC Unfiltered. 2 of their writers both picked Texas in their way too early Omaha 8 projections for 2026. So a great year 1 for Texas baseball. Again, the postseason run wasn't nearly as long as any of us wanted, but despite the departures in talent, Texas has a lot to replace from the SEC championship squad. There's a lot coming in, and you just look at what Jim Schlossnagle has done at every stop in his career. He's had year 1 success just about everywhere he's been, but he's not a one-and-done guy. He's not a flash-in-the-pan type of guy. The success just keeps coming, and I fully expect that to be the case with Texas. The Horns are recruiting at a really high level. Again, big-time transfer portal acquisitions, and I think this train's going to be rolling down the tracks for a long, long time. So there you go. The latest surrounding Longhorn baseball here on the first day of July, and that is going to do it for today's episode. If you made it this far, number 1, thank you. Number 2, please remember to like, share, leave a comment. That helps us grow. Don't forget to turn those notifications on so you're always informed whenever we release new content. Appreciate y'all making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, be sure to check out the Locked On Portal Show. Brian Smith has everything you need to know about the portal and everything you need to know about college football recruiting so you can be the most informed fan wherever you are. Find the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. More recruiting conversation on tomorrow's show, more Texas football team chatter as well. We got you covered. Never a dull moment on the 40 acres. Everything you need to know is happening right here on Locked On Longhorns. But that's going to do it for today's show. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.